Hey everybody, welcome back to your Dawn of Drones podcast. I'm Dawn Zoldi, your host and the CEO of P3 Tech Consulting. We are knee-deep in a month dedicated to this theme of building program success. It was sponsored by USI, formerly Unmanned Safety Institute. And when you think about building a drone program, you have to think about the right drone. And if you're talking about long distances, heavy weights, major load times, hydrogen may very well be the way to go. And this company that's with us today and their CEO, Ben Levinson, Heven Drones, has cracked the nut on hydrogen drones. In fact, they're calling them flying robots because these drones don't just take pictures, they actually perform tasks. And Ben, I'm so excited to have you on the show today.
Hey, thank you. I'm excited to be here.
You know, Ben, I've been watching Heven Drones since you guys started, and the first COVID test deliveries in Israel back in 2020, in the heart of that pandemic. Everything you've been doing since, it's been amazing to watch that growth. So I'm somewhat of a super fan. I'm geeking out a little bit. Before we get into Heven Drones and all the cool stuff you're doing, tell everybody a little bit about yourself.
Cool. So first of all, thank you. Greatly appreciated. You know, it's a journey, and it's nice to see people that appreciate the journey. So I grew up in New York, moved to Israel when I was 10 years old. Always intrigued by entrepreneurship. I guess taking an idea and making it into reality. About 5 years ago, I volunteered for a national project in Israel. At first using drones to identify fires, and then really fast we realized that just identifying the fire without bringing a solution doesn't actually solve the problem. So this is really hackathon kind of mentality. We actually made a drone with the same thermal camera to detect the fires, but then put fire extinguishing material on the drone. So that was really my first, it was a national project volunteering, and I saw the power of drones. And that led me to the founding of Heven Drones about 4 years ago.
I love that. So tell us a little bit about the mission, the vision, if you will, the vision of Heven Drones.
Sure. So, if we look at, the drone market, we're seeing over the past, I would say 10 years, we really kind of seen this uptick where drones, came out as this cool geek toy. And then it kind of came these things that people were flying around to, just take video out there and video our weddings, etc. And we're slowly seeing more and more use of drones as flying cameras, identifying things for many different use cases, right? If you go to a construction site today, you'll see drones flying over, collecting information and, reviewing the progress. If you go to an agriculture field, right, you'll see drones telling you where it needs more spraying and more pesticides, etc. Same thing, Homeland Security, identifying fires, borders. But drones are really used as these flying cameras, right? They're collecting information, and that's great. Through this, and I mentioned how I got introduced to the drone world by taking a drone from a flying camera, identifying a fire, to actually putting out that fire. I realized that the significant growth in the industry will be when drones can really transform from being a flying camera to being a flying robot. And that's our mission at Heven Drones. That's our vision. We envision a world where millions of drones are going to be flying over our heads. It's going to start in things that not are overhead, really. So they'll be flying over our forests. They'll be flying over, many different areas that we as individuals don't want to really be there, putting out fires, things like that, flying over our utility lines, battlefields, but slowly really get into our day-to-day lives. And we believe that these drones will be able to really take on day-to-day challenges and day-to-day solutions and really make our lives significantly better.
Well, a picture paints 1,000 words, so let's go ahead and roll this clip.
Fly further, fly longer, and do more than ever before. Introducing Heven's H2D55, a cutting-edge hydrogen-fueled drone. We're setting a new standard for drones by making downtime a relic of the past. The H2D55 is aerodynamic, lightweight, safe, efficient, and endlessly versatile, empowered by expedited refueling, Featuring 5 times longer flight times and a 7-kilogram payload, the H2D55 allows you to exponentially expand your use cases and redefine previous limitations, creating a new reality beyond anything imaginable. In just 10 minutes, you can enable a 2-hour flight with a low carbon footprint and low cost of ownership. Become a core part of the smart city revolution. Enhance mobility, sustainability, and accessibility. Alleviate natural disasters, answer critical medical needs, and fulfill homeland security concerns with ease. Fly ship to shore, answering all logistics requirements without pause or second thought. Starting with the H100 that carries a max load of 30 kilograms, we developed the ideal solution for immediate supply needs and ground-based robotic integration. Next, we introduced our automated container system, connecting to payloads with 5-centimeter accuracy for automated logistics applications. Once again, we're bringing the future into the present with our hydrogen-powered drones that boast 5 times longer flight times to make the impossible possible. The hydro generation has arrived. Now's the time to overcome barriers and achieve what was once unthinkable.
That was awesome. So much we're going to unpack from that. But before we do, I really want to talk a little bit more about the company. So you're up to about 40 people now, just in a couple years, and you have dual headquarters, right? Where are you guys located?
Correct. So we were founded originally out of Israel, when I founded the company. Israel is an amazing place to incubate and develop new technologies and try them with users. Israel is a very, very small country, the size of New Jersey, right? So, obviously that's our, launch market, but the market that we're aiming for is the US market. So we currently have dual headquarters, one in Miami, Florida, and the other one in up north Israel.
Awesome. So tell us a little bit about your team. You have this incredible team that's been creating this hydrogen flying robot solution for a number of years. Who are they?
Yeah, so very early on in my journey, I had this aha moment where I realized that I started because I realized that drones are important, drones are cool, but then you realize you're actually building an aircraft company. And when this kind of understanding, like, oh no, like I have to build an aircraft company, right? Like just like a Boeing or an Airbus, can't fly out of the sky. These drones can't fly out of the sky. So, over the past, and it's been 4 years, but slowly build a team really of rock stars in a variety of areas. So obviously in the technology side, there's so many different aspects of the drones. The hardware piece, the software piece, the energy piece, which we believe is really, really important. I think you could look at Tesla as an example of, kind of building around an innovative energy source and then kind of putting all the pieces around that. We've done the same with hydrogen. So, we have the hardware piece, the software piece, the energy piece, and then we have everything around that. So we have the quality piece, the operations piece. Of course, you have the sales and marketing, business development. So we really have a variety of key experts, but a lot of our key management have come from key areas. So, for example, our CTO previously led the autonomy team at Amazon Prime Air. Our VP engineering led the commercial aviation group at one of Israel's top companies, a company called Elbit, and many other senior executives. So, really the only way to succeed is to have a team of amazing people pushing forward a vision, and we're fortunate to have really a diverse group of executives leading the company.
Well, and it's evolved so much over time, including the drones that you've created. So let's kind of walk through that evolution in the past, the present, and where we are today.
Sure. So if you look at the past, and again, we're in a very, very fast moving world. So, the past we're talking about 10 years ago, right? When, drones, DJI or the first drones really came to the market as, when you could actually walk to someone on the street and say drones, and they wouldn't just think of this big attack army drone. They really think of this kind of this usable, start as a toy and then really move forward as, something, a usable tool. The present, where I think the industry is today, is that really thinking, and this definitely where we've been leading, is drones that can do more. And we start off by developing battery-powered drones that can lift more payload and have more stability, so they can actually do more tasks. That's up to 35 kilograms, about 75 pounds of payload, in a variety of use cases. What you see here on the screen is a multi-package drone. So it's taking, 3 packages, and this can be a variety of different aspects from last mile delivery all the way to, delivery in the field for soldiers. And where we're going is really hydrogen powered drones.
All right, very good. We are going to dig deep into hydrogen because I know a lot of people out there are interested in that. By the way, we are live, everybody. Just a reminder, if you're out there, say hello, ask us questions, give Ben some positive encouragement. We had a crazily engaged clubhouse last Thursday with Maggie Schuster. Lots of great questions, Ben, from that crowd. So hopefully our LinkedIn and YouTube crowd will engage today. But I want to focus on, you mentioned a bunch of use cases, and we're going to get into some really unique, specific ones that you've been doing. But let's talk about your kind of innovation roadmap, because you were very specific in some of the problems you were trying to solve for the industry. So let's walk through that.
Yeah, sure. So, we spoke about this, this flying robot concept, right? But if you think about it, there are a few key aspects that really have to come together in order for this to work. And, drones really make sense when they're autonomous, right? If you have one person sitting behind the controller or the screen commanding a drone, then the value is not really there. You can have someone sitting behind, a wheel or something else. So going to drones that can fly from single drone to groups and swarms, essentially autonomous, ecosystem, that is critical. And we're doing a lot of work on that field. I mentioned the relatively new team member we have that led the team at the autonomy team at Amazon. The drones have to be able to fly for longer distances, right? A drone that's flying for 5-10 miles, that's great for a specific use case. This is not going to be enough when we're going to have hundreds of drones flying out there doing a variety of tasks. And that's really the hydrogen comes in. I know we're going to be speaking about that more, but that's a critical piece for us. If you imagine any level of swarm, so 10 drones flying and then coming back every 20-30 minutes to get to recharge, this is an operational nightmare. They just won't be able to scale up. And the last thing is the payloads, right? If you want to fly with the camera, take 2, 3, 5 pounds, that's great. If you want a new generation of flying robots doing a variety of tasks, we have to break that barrier. And we believe that these 3 things, the software, the autonomy piece, flying for longer, and then flying with more weights, as we solve all of these and we solve them better and at scale, this will allow the autonomous drone ecosystems of the future, which means that you can look at any industry. You can speak about, agriculture, smart cities, defense, homeland security, and you can imagine how will swarms of drones actually solve this problem as an ecosystem.
Well, you mentioned cameras, and honestly, there's a lot of sensors out there today, like LiDAR as an example, that are super heavy payloads. Not to mention, if you want to add other components to that drone, right, to make it heavier. So what you're doing is really key, and I love the applications. We're going to talk about those use cases in a second. But before we do, you've alluded to this, your drones are a class apart. Nobody, to my knowledge, is really doing what you're doing. So can you explain kind of how you designed, or in what respects you designed your drones to be different?
Yeah, sure. So, I think we look at this industry, this problem a little bit differently than the rest of the companies. For us, it really was, what are the technologies that will have to be developed and scaled up in order for drones to actually be flying robots at scale? And we can call them also like flying tools, right? If you think about it, but essentially not just seeing, but doing, right? It's a really different mindset. And as I mentioned, those 3 things, the software, being able to fly for longer and with more payloads is really the key to that. And when we looked at that, so originally, we really started working on battery management systems that will make the drone more efficient. And what we realized is that even as drones are flying, so we got 40 minutes, we even got 50 minutes out of drones, but that's not enough. And if we want to really break this barrier, and again, bring this new generation of drones, we have to change the energy source. We have to be able to scale up dramatically. And that's where hydrogen came into the story. So we ended up bringing on Israel's leading hydrogen professor, Professor Elbaz, which is really a great source of knowledge, which is so important in early industry. And as I mentioned, Israel is a great place to incubate technologies. And we are fortunate to have a great relationship with the Israeli government. And we ended up becoming the exclusive supplier of hydrogen drones to the Israeli government, which really allowed us to understand the problem better and then solve it better, and also work on all the different questions. I'm sure our users, our listeners are thinking, well, hold on, how do I refuel this, right? wait, hydrogen, we've all been hearing about hydrogen bombs. Is this safe, right? So
Right.
all these questions that kind of come up. So we've been working very closely for the past 2 years with one of the largest users of drones in the world, the Israeli government. And with that, we have to scale up this technology and these products. So I think, these kind of unique mindset that we had and being able to work closely with the users really put us in a good place to bring this technology to market and actually scale it up. And I'll add kind of one thing on this is that, when we started working with, originally when we worked in hydrogen, we took our battery powered drone, our urban drone, and we literally replaced the energy source, right? So from batteries, we used hydrogen, and we went from about 25 minutes with a 10 plus pound payload to over 100 minutes, right? So we
Whoa.
saw a 4x increase immediately. But when we started doing that, we started working into the technology, we realized that this is not enough because we want to develop a drone around the hydrogen, right? Why is that important? Because as we scale up, we want to be able to work in essentially all energy, all operational temperatures, right, and environments. We want to make the best flight mode that really utilizes hydrogen the best way. An example of that is that, and I think we saw that in the video. If you look at this drone, it's kind of a cool drone because it's on one hand it's a multi-rotor, but it's not a regular multi-rotor because it has that small wing there. And what we're trying to solve is that we, traditionally know two forms of aircraft. We have the multi-rotor, which is very good for hovering and very good at going at different speeds and essentially larger payloads. On the other side, we have the fixed wing aircraft, which is very good for going very fast and going far. But if you want to hover in place, you can't do that. You can go, there are vertical takeoff and landings eVTOLs that can kind of go up and down. But if you wanted to hover for 15 minutes for whatever reason to scan something, to drop off a package or multiple packages, you can't do that. So this drone, the HUD-55, our first commercially viable hydrogen drone, is a combination of both. So it can hover, in place for over 90 minutes, but then it can also have a forward flight mode that can go faster and further. So these are really the things. And again, I like, I'm no Elon Musk, but I like to kind of look at that because I think Tesla's a really great example of a company that really built itself. A hardware company, what it does is it creates, a hardware, but they really put a focus on the energy and on software. And if you look at Tesla's journey, they start off taking a sports car, Lotus, and they just kind of replaced the regular engine with a battery. And then they went to the Model S, right? And then they kind of built a car around the battery. And we went to the same journey, so we're trying to imitate that journey with the understanding that the energy source is really so important to scale up this technology.
Well, Ben, I warned you before we started the show. This is the point where we deviate from the script because the chat is blowing up. And I want to address a couple of things. Number one, Joaquin Roybell is out there saying good morning, but I also had a couple comments and questions, which I want to get into here. Nicholas Tannery is saying good morning. Thank you for the presentation. Thank you, everybody, for these questions. So Joaquin is asking, and I know the answer, but I'm going to let you answer because you're the guest. Why the focus on delivery? I know you're not just focusing on delivery, by the way. He says challenges of payload distance, as you mentioned. It seems like Amazon focused on that, but we haven't heard much. And what is the exact problem being solved by using drones as a delivery service? I think the issue here is more like the hydrogen solution and the uniqueness of your drones and how that can impact delivery. And in my brain, I go right to beyond visual line of sight. But over to you, please answer.
Right. So those are a bunch of great questions, kind of packed into one long question. So, I think let's start from why delivery in general. Right? Why are drones important for delivery? In the world that we live in, and if you look at the past 100 years of history, right? 100 years back or 200 years back, when we had to actually almost all 50% of the population had to go out to the field to harvest, right? Their fruits and their food. Obviously, the world is going, really, really fast in machinery, automation, robotics, etc. So the goal is to be able to do our tasks, the automated tasks, with machines, so that we can use, as human beings, our added value, our brain, etc. Right? So if we think about, delivery, how things move around is so important. And just as an example, like the world of the internet really connected us on a virtual level, right? But I like to give the example, if you are in the metaverse, right? We're human beings, we still want to eat, right? How do you get your food? And if you think about it today, if you order on, even just DoorDash, right? You got someone making that, someone's taking that out to the delivery driver, taking out, parking his car, going back to his car, driving that, getting off, putting it in your building. There's so much human interaction for this really simple thing of getting your food delivered, right? Yeah. So the power of robots are so important. And I think, the power of drones as an aerial robot is so important because if you look at any scenario, look at the forest, look at the sea, look at a city, the two dimension is just so packed with so many things, right? From Fifth
Yeah.
Avenue or just in general, there's so many obstacles there.
Well, and
And
not to, Ben, not to cut you off, but, add to that, congestion, right? And the time that it takes to do things by road, the environmental impacts of using gas, and that, from that congestion. So, I mean, the list goes on as to why drones are a great answer for delivery. And I think your hydrogen solution is really unique insofar as not only, I know there's different kinds of hydrogen, but the goal here is green hydrogen and, making that environmentally friendly, even more so than a battery, hypothetically. But also being able to do this beyond visual line of sight and long distances as needed, because we know delivery isn't just going to be, from, a restaurant right to my backyard. It might be that middle mile from, right, from a distribution center, out to somewhere else, right? So I think that's
correct.
where maybe that's a good fit for what you're talking about.
Exactly, exactly. And this I'm gonna have the second part of the question, or I guess the first part is like, why are we focused on delivery? So as you said, Don, the answer is that we're really not focused just on delivery, but
Yeah.
the reason we like to speak about delivery a lot is because we're really trying to bring to the world a new generation of drones. And if we're thinking about the most simple use case for going from just a camera that's seeing something and we want to be able to do something, is taking something from point A to point B, right? And if you think about it, there's so many different types of modes of delivery. And you can be delivering, we have a use case where we deliver robots, right? Into harder than just to get area. So on one hand, this is it's a robot. On the other hand, it's actually a form of delivery. So, we believe that the first, you know, aspect beyond the flying camera that's going to really scale up dramatically is the drone delivery market. As you said, so many aspects: B2C, B2B, in defense, in commercial, in dangerous areas. So there's really so much to unpack there. But the quick answer is, this really is the use case that I think we're going to see scaling up, drones beyond just flying cameras.
Well, and in some respects, I agree with you, Ben. I think the regulatory side is a little bit more difficult right now for that, at least in the United States. But, from a public acceptance perspective, like that's what people are getting excited about. Like that's something they can see possibly even in their own neighborhoods. And, whereas some of the incredible use cases that we're going to talk about here momentarily that can save lives, that can prevent accidents and just be more safe and efficient, those are not going to be necessarily kind of visible to the public, but so critical to
Correct.
enterprise, to public safety, to our defenders, as you mentioned, whether it's the Israeli Defense Forces or U.S. forces or coalition partners. But I want to dig deeper into your actual drones and talk a little bit about those platforms. I know you have three at this point. Here's your slide, what you've got today and where you're going. So walk us through this.
Yeah, so our traditional product line has been battery powered drones, where we try to solve is number one, the payload capacity, so up to 75 pounds. And number two is the versatility, the different kinds of payloads, right? So, if you see that one in the middle there with the H100, that's actually a landing pad for a robot, right? So ground robots can actually go up and off that and change their use cases, etc. So that was a traditional line. The beginning of on February, we introduced our HD55. So that's our first battery powered drone. Already we have orders for this, and it's going to be delivered hopefully before the end of the year, kind of towards, again, beginning of 2024. We're coming out with two additional products on the battery line, which is really so, on the hydrogen line, I'm sorry, which is really so important. And the focus there is going to be larger payloads. The reason it's so important is because in the hydrogen line, we're going to flying from, I call it minutes, but it's 10 minutes. It's 30 minutes and plus to going really towards a couple hours, right? And I believe that this is really going to open up, this drone market completely, right? Because our goal is to take this from a niche product to a mass product. Or I think that's when we'll see, I say there's just a blue, beautiful, huge blue ocean out there, right? But it's not accessible today, right? So we're
Right.
trying to make these paths, right? And our goal is like, right now there's this niche path, this small path that the first responders use, or like niche use cases use drones. Our goal is to kind of build this huge, nice path so everyone can see this beautiful blue ocean out there. And I think that being able to fly with significant payloads fly for longer, and the autonomy piece. And again, autonomy is safety. Autonomy is economics because it's one to many. So it's one person managing, 20, 30 drones in the future. And also the economics of that makes so much sense. So that's a really big focus of what we're doing as a company, and also why we're really, love to collaborate with other companies, because this is an industry challenge, right? For the drone industry to, that ocean is not just Heven Drones, right? That ocean is, flying robots. That's drones. And that's why I think it's so important, kind of the collaboration in the industry and really having these discussions, right? Speaking about the joint challenges we all have.
Yeah, the versatility and variety, we are going to talk about that because you have some really, really cool use cases that go well beyond delivery. Okay. And what I want to talk about next is hydrogen, because we've all heard about it, but not many people really understand it. And this idea that it can power a drone much longer than a normal battery can, and things like this. Can you kind of walk us through the benefits of hydrogen?
Yeah, sure. So hydrogen has many benefits. And, it's kind of, we started, we started using hydrogen to solve the main issue, which was how can drones fly efficiently for hours, which essentially is the energy density challenge. The difference that, drone developers have versus someone making a car or a forklift or, other aspect of ground vehicles is that, the energy density, the amount of payload we have is really so challenging, because you need your energy to lift off. So the basic thing that hydrogen does is really increase the endurance. Into that, the really interesting piece here is that, so I mentioned, the basic energy is about 5 times the amount of efficiency, right?
Yeah.
But what's really cool is that when we want to double that to about 8 or 10 times of hydrogen, all we have to do is, for example, going up pressure. So right now we're pressurizing this in 350 bars. Once we
Wow.
go to 700 bars, all of a sudden we we double that efficiency. But we can also go from gas hydrogen to liquid hydrogen, right? Another way we can do is we can actually, so right now we're only using between 200 250 grams of hydrogen, a very small amount, right? If we have a tank that adds a little bit more hydrogen, all of a sudden we get significantly more flight time. So if you think about it, if you have batteries, right, and you want to double your flight time, theoretically you have to at least double your batteries, which weigh a lot. And even then, you're not doubling your flight time because you have these heavier batteries, right?
Yeah.
In the case of drones, right, we can, with a couple pounds, we can literally double our hydrogen capacity and fly for longer, right? So, for example, this HUD-55 that flies for 2 hours with 15 pounds of payload, we actually have a version that flies with a smaller payload of about 5 pounds, but can fly for about 6 hours, right? So the flexibility of being able to jump from 2 hours to 6 hours and still having a 5 pound payload, so you're just giving up 10 pounds of that. That really is a significant difference between batteries and hydrogen. Another great example is the refueling time, right? So we all have smartphones, and after about 3 to 6 months with your phone, it gets very frustrating that also at 2 p.m. or 4 p.m. middle of the day, all of a sudden the battery starts deteriorating, right? So
Mm.
batteries have cycles, and after a few cycles, then these batteries start losing their efficiency, right? So in the drone world, batteries get about 500 cycles. In the fuel cells, we're talking about between 2,000 and 4,000 cycles, right? So
Yeah.
significantly more. Another thing is that it takes time to refuel to recharge your phone,
Yeah.
right? Today, if you pull in the plug, if you're stuck, you can't just get, I know they're working on it, but like rapid, like charging in 5 minutes. It doesn't work that way. Same thing, electric cars. The hydrogen is different. Hydrogen is like going to a gas station, 2 minutes and you're out there, right? So if you think about it, it's so powerful because, when we're talking about drones, the goal is also, of course, the economics of it. And if you have to, for every, the battery drones, half an hour flight, you have to recharge for between half an hour and an hour. We're talking about a 2 hour flight today, and it takes you 5 to 10 minutes, and it's going to get shorter to refuel this, right? So, these are a variety of kind of significant advantages. And of course, hydrogen is a clean energy. It doesn't matter how you get your hydrogen, and we encourage our customers to use green hydrogen, but hydrogen really is a green fuel that makes our planet better. So if you add all these together, it's really a no-brainer.
Well, yeah, there's a great question from Chris Genesis. Chris, if you recall, was in Clubhouse asking you a whole slew of really good questions there too. But this one is, how does the maintenance differ from
Right.
traditional battery operated drone?
Yes, so that's a great question. So, essentially, the advantage of a fuel cell similar to batteries, but definitely the advantage over like gasoline engines that we can sometimes see in other hybrid drones is that there's just about no maintenance, right? So again, after maybe about 1,000 hours, you'll have kind of some simple maintenance, but really insignificant. And these fuel cells are totally quiet, right? So again, if you're flying with propellers, and you're flying in propeller mode and not forward flight mode, you will hear the propellers, but the engine, the fuel cell itself does not make it's totally quiet like a battery. So it really is really, really, really simple.
Excellent, excellent. Let's see, what else? You have a hydrogen partner, and tell us about them because they're really unique, right? They've been doing things, I think if I recall, you said with forklifts. Uh,
Correct.
okay, yeah, tell us about
Yeah. So we work with a variety of partners. In general, my thesis and our thesis at Heaven Drones is that, because the challenge and the opportunity is so big, because how can we focus our core energy on what we do best, which is designing the best drones in the market, and like we can scale them up, and working with partners, especially challenging aspects like hydrogen, right? We mentioned we're still a small company, about 40 employees today. So we have a variety of partnerships. One of our key partners is a company called Plug Power. So Plug Power is a great company based in upstate New York, public company in the Nasdaq, so we're worth many many billions, and they're a 20 plus years in the hydrogen business. One of their legacy products is the hydrogen forklift. So they have over 70,000 operational forklifts in the warehouses of Amazon, Walmart, Home Depot, and the like. And you know what's the difference between a forklift and a drone is that in a forklift these things are pretty heavy, right? These fuel cells, but for the forklifts they're great because forklifts are pretty heavy. When we started speaking with Plug Power, the problem was that they have great technology, great forklifts, but these are heavy. So we launched a partnership with Plug Power. Already we're working with them for the past year and a half, and it's been an amazing partnership. And already by the end of the year, so next coming months, we're going to be flying with their new fuel cell. And what we're doing with them is developing fuel cells that have a lot higher capacity, so more energy output, but they're lighter weight, right? Which
so
is a
small,
challenge, right? Because you want to
lightweight
get
and power.
exactly. So
Yeah,
they give more power and they weigh less.
yep.
Um, and that's an amazing partnership for us.
Yeah, I mean, you definitely can't go it alone in this industry to succeed. That's been, kind of my impression as I talk to different companies across the board. Just as a practical matter, if I'm a company and I want to buy one of your drones, number one, how do I even find the hydrogen to use? Is it just it's in there, almost like my Tesla has the battery and it's like part of the thing, and I don't have to worry about like adding hydrogen to it? And secondly, we talked about maintenance, but Raj Singh is saying, can you throw a little bit more light on those maintenance aspects? So, number
Sure.
one, how's a practical matter does the operator like engage with this hydrogen? Is it already kind of in there, or is there something I need to do if I'm that person?
Yeah, so there definitely is, and this is where it's important to listen up, right? So there's two key components of the hydrogen. We have the fuel cell, which takes hydrogen and makes it into energy, and then we have a hydrogen cylinder slash tank. And this is a tank, as you can imagine, which is highly pressurized, and the hydrogen goes in there, and then it goes into the fuel cell, and that's what creates the energy. So um, every time you want to use the drone, you do have to refuel the tank with hydrogen, which is I would say today the key challenge that we have, which is we are hydrogen is it's not a new technology, but I would say it's not yet used at scale. So the
Right.
infrastructure isn't necessarily there, kind of like Tesla had originally before they built their network of refueling recharging
Yeah, the
stations. So
charging stations. Yeah.
exactly. So
I have a
there's
Tesla, so no, there are times where I plot out like, all right, am I taking the Tesla here? If it's a long trip, because that is kind of a worry, right? Like,
yeah.
and in cold weather, that battery power dissipates, so it sucks battery so much quicker. I got to kind of factor that. Same with heat, I got to factor all that in.
Correct. Yeah,
Yeah.
correct. And same thing in hydrogen. So there's essentially three ways you would refuel the drone, right? The first way, and kind of the most simple, is that there are infrastructure for hydrogen, and basically you can just take your tank, go to one of these stations. California, for example, has hundreds of them, and you can then refuel the drone, right? There are actually today,
Yeah.
there's already services. partner services that we work with that will just ship you, FedEx or DHL, literally, ship you these systems. It's a little bit on the pricey side, more than just putting in your electricity in the wall. Those are great solutions, and those are the simplest solutions we have today. The second aspect is being able to essentially do the pressurizing, have like a small system, foot by foot by foot, I would say. And this allows you to, get, let's say, once a month, a very large, like in the hospitals, a very large hydrogen tank, and then you by yourself you refuel it. It's a really, really simple kind of pressurizing system. So just like, in some people's houses, in Israel, it's very common that, once in a while the gas company comes and they just bring this big gas tank, and then you kind of use it manually, right? For your stove, and then they refuel that once every couple months. So saving in hydrogen. So again, it's really, really simple. The last thing, and this is really where the world is going, is what we call an on-site electrolyzer. So what this means is that because we're using a very small amount of energy, right, between 200 to 250 grams of hydrogen, if you think about it, if you want to use your drone for 10 hours a day, right, 10 hours a day, all you need is about 1 kilogram of hydrogen a day, which is nothing. So today there's something called a micro electrolyzer. So in any kind of, utility or any kind of enterprise, area, you can just set up it's called a micro electrolyzer. So usually it will connect to any sort of electricity or ideally to solar panels, and you can create your hydrogen. So wherever you are in the world, on the planet, as long as you have a few solar panels or electricity, you can create your own hydrogen. Right?
That's
the ideal
crazy.
solution.
And I'm cracking up, Ben, because like when you're saying a hydro electrolyzer, I'm like, it sounds like a flux capacitor, go back.
It is so simple.
Yeah.
I mean, it's simple. Again, like I'm not the chemist. I don't even understand how it works.
Yeah.
And, there are people that do that. But the technology is really, it's a new technology, but it's really there today. Now we have some amazing partners there. And again, as you say, these drones really, these aren't for, us to play around with. They're really tools and robots. And they're going to be used especially in hubs. And therefore, being able to put this on-site electrolyzer is really, really simple. And that's where the world is going, right? And it's a really great solution.
Ben, I told you before we started our time with Fly, it is flying. We got to get the use cases. And so I apologize, Dash, for not kind of diving even deeper into maintenance at this point, but I really
and I'll just say that, anyone's really welcome to kind of connect offline, any questions or anything. And, we're there for you. So happy to jump into anything.
Well, and that's a great point. Ben is on LinkedIn. So, DM him, reach out through his website. Lots of questions. And that part of why we do this is to connect people. But so you're not just about drone delivery. You've been doing, as you said, defense application, working for the IDF exclusively as their exclusive hydrogen drone provider, like almost since the inception of your company, Homeland Security. I want to talk about this really interesting enterprise application, something we all see when we're driving down the highway, at least in the United States, those red balls that are hanging on those power lines that I guess are called marker balls. See, I learned that from your clubhouse. I always wonder, like, what are those for? And boy, what do they do? And how do people, like, what happens if something goes wrong? You've got a really interesting use case with that, with your drone and those marker balls.
Correct. Yeah. So, and again, just to kind of summarize, like we like to categorize in kind of 4 different categories. Yep. We have defense, we have homeland security. So you can imagine fire, police, emergencies, the FEMAs, etc. Then we have enterprise solutions. Then we have consumer smart city drone delivery, right? And again, jump into all these, and we can be here for hours and hours. I know we don't have that time. So jumping into your question, so. Marker, if you think about electric lines, right? If you're a helicopter pilot or any plane pilot and you're flying near an airport and you're flying low, then you can definitely, by mistake fly into an electric cable, which is terrible, right? Yeah. So the FAA legally, the electric companies, they have to put these marker balls, and that's what they are. They're supposed to mark where the electric cables are. They're supposed to be bright colors, so you'll see them usually red or orange. And there's a certain distance you have to put them every couple hundred feet, usually near airports. And there's, again, specifically in the law. The challenge is that to install these, and of course they have to install them, and then you have to have maintenance because they're in the sun, so the color fades out. So they have to be maintained and replaced once in a while. So the traditional way of doing this today, especially in hard to get areas where you can't really go from the ground, is to have a helicopter, to have a crew literally hanging out of a helicopter connected to a cable. Yikes. It's crazy. And unfortunately, there's many accidents a year, and you can read about them. You can see YouTube videos of this. Actually, it's absolutely crazy that in 2023 people are still hanging out of helicopters to do this. But making a long story short, some people do. So this is a great example that we've been exploring. Now, we don't have a commercial solution yet, but we've really been working on this problem of how can flying robots, how can actionable drones actually be the ones to replace, place these marketable. So it's a fantastic use case. Our larger capacity, our stability really allows us to do this, and we're working with some significant partners around the world for this use case. So it's a really exciting use case, and this is just one example. I urge anyone kind of listening, just think about it in your daily life, the problems you encounter, and how can a drone that essentially doesn't have limitations of either stability, payload, or flight time, how can these drones make an impact? And then reach out and let's work on this together.
I love that. And the solar farm array use case that you're working with, this whole autonomous kind of maintenance and replacement of solar farm panels. There's things you said in Clubhouse I never thought about, oh, they have to be clean. Because I've got 16 on the roof because I do have a Tesla and a charger in my garage, right? I don't think we've ever cleaned it. So, by the way, hint, hint, I don't think your use case is just for enterprise. I could see this someday, being used on rooftops at regular homes to clean those solar panels. So
totally.
Tell everybody about this, because this is like so cool. I've never heard of such a thing. This plot.
Totally. And that's why I said
pick and play, you called it?
Yes. So again, this is totally, and part of our work in this, this use case definitely goes down to, the consumer. So we're going to have essentially, imagine a truck that does installments, and the truck's going to pull up, and the back of a truck is a drone. Once the driver can even, or the autonomous truck or the driver can stay in the truck, and the drone will actually do this. So probably on your rooftop, you're probably not getting the most out of your solar panels. Why? Because when they're dirty, then they're just not. The sun is not going to be, you're not going to get the most out of the sun there, right? And out of the energy. So I love this use case because the best form of hydrogen is green hydrogen, which means it comes from a renewable source, and that can be solar, that can be hydro, that can be wind. But if you think about it, right, and we want something to be totally renewable, a solar farm does a lot of maintenance, right? So if we can make this a total autonomous solar farm that uses drones, and we can use it to power the hydrogen in the drone, that's amazing. So what are we talking about? Solar farms tend to be in the far remote places because they're usually very large, and there's a lot of aspects of installing and upkeeping a solar farm, right? These things get dirty. This could be from just regular kind of dirt, all the way to poop from birds and anything else. And these have to be, maintained, and they have to be cleaned. Also, once in a while, they can break, right? And these have to be installed. So essentially, once our drones are up to like 75 pounds, we started getting approached by companies in the solar field, say, hey, if you can lift a solar panel, let's speak about making an autonomous solar farm that the drones are actually the ones that are essentially, you have autonomous drones, and they're the ones that are installing your solar farms, cleaning them, upkeeping them, and doing the rest of the kind of stuff around the solar farm. Amazing use case. Again, and then this is going, creating the hydrogen that is empowering these drones. So this is an end-to-end kind of 360 solution, clean, 100% clean. This is how we're going to make the world a clean and better place.
Oh, that is so cool. And the pick and play aspect, most people may not appreciate this if they didn't listen to Clubhouses. The vision is that these drones will literally pick out the solar panel that, say, is broken or needs to be replaced, take it to the warehouse, swap it out and replace it, or take the really super dirty one, put it in like a washing machine, if you will, and come back and replace it. So just like an amazing, use case, Ben. I'm so excited by this. We literally have 2 minutes left. We have a crazy chat. People are jumping in. Phantom Flight 100 saying good morning here, listening. Desh Singh has even more questions for you. So he already said he's going to ping you separately. So we'll leave it to that. But you've got some big kind of announcements coming up about what you expect, over the next 2 quarters, like through the end of this year. So let's talk about that, and then let's end with some concluding thoughts, Ben.
Yeah, so the big one for us is really coming to the U.S. market. I would say strongly. We always started with a U.S. kind of goal, but we made the decision, I think the right decision, to really start in corporate technology in Israel. And now over the past close to 9 months, we've been really pushing the US market. So this is a really, really strong point of us. And that goes, kind of from the, defense level all the way down to drone delivery. So we're working with a variety of partners there. And already starting September, we are going to be on road shows, initially with our customers and partners, and then slowly going out to the public, really bring our technology to the market. And that's going to be really exciting. And, can't wait to interact with the market about that. And the second piece is really hydrogen drones, right? So our H2D55 that really was redesigned for this amazing kind of cool drone, fly for longer and kind of cool way of flying. So this is coming to the market. We're going to have some really amazing announcements of our additional models that are coming out. So it's really an exciting time, coming to the US market, new use cases, new models, and really scaling up and making the world a better place, one flying robot at a time.
Awesome. Making the world a better place, one flying robot at a time. That is so good. So on that note, it's a great way to end the show. Thank you everybody for engaging in the chat. Absolutely connect with Ben. If you haven't checked out the Heven Drones website, they've got a lot of information on there. And you can obviously connect with Ben there as well. So Ben, anything else before we say goodbye?
I think we covered a lot. There's obviously a lot more to cover, but I think we really covered the essentials. Thank you so much. And thank you, to everyone with us. It really is a pleasure. And yeah, I'm looking forward to building a better future.
Awesome. Everybody, we are out here.